Happy Sunday morning, everybody. My name is Scott Morgan. We're off the Motor City Madmouth, and we are back here with the professor and the pupil. Although I should add S because the S stands for Jacob Christner, the newest member of our crew. Although it's the second opportunity with this thing. So, anyways, glad to have you on this morning. A beautiful Sunday morning. Glad to have Jeremy. These are the two guys I'm riding with. You never know what other people, guests, or people we add on Sunday, but this is a core three. All right. Anyways, Jeremy, how was your weekend so far?
Fantastic. Well rested. Let's rock.
Absolutely.
And Jacob, we're coming off a really nice show on Pundit's Pundit on Thursday night. I think the show's making a boatload of progress, and the upside for that is really good, as well as fire up. So I expect the professor and the pupil to get just as much momentum as we continue to do these shows. All right, well, let me give everybody a basic overview of the topics. We're going to get right to it right away. And then you can, when we're done, get going with the rest of your Sunday. All right, first we're going to talk about motorsports and the Olympics. I would have thought that. And we're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh, Michigan Wolverines, and finally, when will America give professional women's basically their respect on TV? And Jeremy's going to take the lead on those two. I'll get going with the motorsports Olympics thing. With that said, that's what we're going to do right now. First of all, if motorsports were in the Olympics, here's what the breakdown would be. Max Verstappen, Alex Palou, Kyle Busch, Lewis Hamilton would be potentially one team. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Scott McLaughlin, Youssef Newgarden, and then Pat O'Ward, Fernando Alonso, Joey Logano, someone else. And that's where we're going to have some fun with it in a minute. We'll find out what these guys, someone else would be. But here's what the possible scenarios would be. We'll have one road course race in an open wheel car. Then we also have a road course race in a stock car. Makes sense, right? Oval race in an open wheel car. Oval, that is. And, of course, one oval race in a stock car. Pretty much basic. You know what this kind of reminds me of, though? I don't know how much you guys have ever followed motorsports, but I remember a long time ago when they had the IROC series where you had a lot of drivers coming in from lots of different classes competing. That was pretty good. I think he used to hold that over at Daytona International Speedway. So, Jeremy Ballrick. Okay. Yes. First of all, two questions for you. Okay. Number one, what are your thoughts on maybe motorsports in the Olympics? I know it hasn't been talked a lot about, but give me that, and then we'll have a two-part question.
It'll be a little bit different. It would be like the triathlon of motorsports.
Right. Okay. All right. And then give me a driver that you think would fill that fourth spot.
What race group am I looking for? You grab what?
It doesn't matter. Just give me a driver.
Bring him out of retirement. Jeff Gordon.
Okay, I like that one. All right. Very good. Okay, Jacob, you know the questions? Please give me the answers.
It does. Well, I'm going to give this part right now. It's like one of the biggest things about being in the Olympics is it is now obvious. And I kind of had an idea in the first place when they were doing this, years and years ago, that they were trying to make NASCAR more international, more national, more everything, than not just like the Southern, hey, bye, hey, Bubba, that sort. And which was fun. It was fun driving. Look at the old YouTube things. That's fun driving. Don't get me wrong. But to build it to an international thing where you're thinking of the Olympics, you have to do what NASCAR did, is build everything up. Build it to all 50 states, build it around the world, be able to have it in like the Coliseum, do those. And that was one of the issues that was what a lot of people wondered why they did that, because NASCAR was pretty popular within the kind of like the WCW, NWA, Mid-Atlantic type of areas for years. It was so popular there, made plenty of money there. People wonder why they changed things up. I mean, you had your local heroes, you had your Pettys, you had your Earnhardts, you had that. But then Jimmy, and then of course Jeff Gordon was eternally hated by the Hicks, and they, and all them eternally hated for it because he was a pretty boy, and get all that. But you had to have a Jeff Gordon. You had to have all those to be able to build toward what we are seeing now, the Olympics. And I understand it's going to the Olympics because driving is a very, very physically stressful thing. People think it's just driving around. 200 miles an hour, that takes a lot of athletic ability. Yeah, because we lose. Any of us would lose control if we're not built for it. But as far as you said, you brought somebody out of retirement. I'm going to bring Jimmie Johnson. I'm bringing. Now, see, you got Jeff Gordon. I've got a guy. But either way, they're winners.
That was my point. Is why not bring a winner into that circle of that last group?
Right.
My goodness, you guys know more auto racing than I thought you did. Yeah, I think it'd be great to get them in the Olympics. Why not? You got everything else in there. Might as well have NASCAR. These are pretty guys. I mean, NASCAR, or just any class for that matter. Jimmie Johnson was on my list, but I knew that one of you guys were smart enough to do it. So I decided to add Tonystewart instead because he can race on all kinds of surfaces. So.
Right.
I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. You can't bring Dale Earnhardt back because he's kind of like not available, but I would certainly love to see what he'd be like on this circuit as well. So, if anybody,
sorry,
if anybody would deserve to be on this type of format, I would say you're good.
Yeah, unless you got the Professor Peabody Wayback Machine.
Yeah, no, that's funny. Yeah, I would love to see Dale Earnhardt, but he's really not available. But Tonystewart a guy. I've gotten to know Tony, Jimmie Johnson, and Jeff Gordon throughout my years covering motorsports, and they're all super classy people. So
Young Dale.
What's that?
Young Dale we could bring
back.
But
you know what? I'm not buying into the junior Kool-Aid.
I know.
Sorry.
I know.
I'm not. Dale Earnhardt to me. I'll just let everybody know, though, that Professor and people are being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Professor and people can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Just participate in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or go out there and send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com or on Twitter, or X as they call it these days. We're at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. So, with that said, okay, I got my topic out of the way. We're going to turn it over to Jeremy Ballrick. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, the athletic director and the University of Michigan Board of Directors decided to get ahead of the review that NCAA was going to let Jim Harbaugh attend to see what his suspension would be and do a 3-game suspension. The original suspension was set down to be a 4-game suspension. I think it was actually very smart because of it being such a low grade 1 infraction about lying about class 2 infractions. I think it's a very smart thing they did there. What do you think about that, Jacob?
It was beautiful. It's like, look at the reason is, this is the truth. Just taking a look at this right now, okay? Just taking a look at this right now. 3-game suspension, East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. Number 4 is a, even though it's Rutgers, it's still the Big Ten. It's a B1G game. Even if it's Rutgers, it's still a B1G game. It's like, no matter if it's a conference game, you want your coach there. So you can use your interns and your towel boys and your laundry people and everything for these first 3 games. But that's exactly why you had this in the first place. They don't want him gone for the conference game, even if it's at home game, if it's Rutgers. That's why they brought this thing. They knew he was going down for something. Then they had to question. Colincowherd had one of his dumb questions. Is this going to affect Michigan? No, because he's gone for these games.
Right.
He's gone for these games. Big deal. I mean, you could bring Schembechler. You could bring Schembechler's the corpse back and they'll win 3. I mean, this is not going to affect anything. But they just did not, even if it's Rutgers, they did not want him away with the conference game. You never know.
Absolutely.
Boy, I'll tell you, Christner, with all the time I've been on the air, this is one of your better humor. Yeah, here I'm talking. Folks, we ought to call this show the Day of the Living Dead because, first of all, okay, I mentioned Dale Earnhardt. Now Jacob comes up with a Bo Schembechler. That wasn't worth losing a hat over, but it was still good anyways. All right.
I could have brought up Woody Hayes.
What are your 2 cents on it there, Scott?
Huh?
What are your 2 cents on this subject?
I'll give you my 2 cents and then some now. Great move by Michigan. NCAA's in a heap of trouble anyways with all this NIL and all this transferring. So Yeah, I think it's a good move. I mean, Harbaugh 3 games. We'll see what happens a year from now. It's one of those things where you got 3 games in your pocket anyway. So what are you going to do? Add more for this stupid infraction? I don't know. I mean, I've always thought Jim Harbaugh runs a clean program. I've always thought he's the best things that's happened to Michigan in many, many years. If you don't believe me, I don't think the results of bradyhoke and Rich Rodriguez would do anybody to help anyone else. So I think they're very appreciative that they even have him there. Hold on, Jeremy. Okay, so I think it's a great move. I really do. I mean, U of M's getting ahead of it. That's what it's all. A lot of teams know if they've made mistakes, okay, get ahead of it. And that way you're showing good faith to try to hand it in a diplomatic way. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And you brought up a name there, and that I almost said they could have had Brady Hoke coach those 3 games and still win.
Well, maybe 2-1. No.
Stop. It was Rich Rod that lost to Colorado. Stop it.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember right, I think Rich Rod, isn't he coaching at Jacksonville State or one of those schools out there?
He's at either an HBCU or a Division II team. Yes. I
think he's on a team that ended up making the jumping class to FBS, but it was.
Okay.
I used to call him Poor Rod. I used to call him
that?
Poor Rod instead of Rich Rod because the teams were always in poverty when he was coaching.
Well, I mean, outside of his hiccup, believe it or not, with Michigan, I think he's done a halfway decent job.
No, in Michigan, it was Poor Rod. It was horrible.
You know what's funny is, we really didn't give him his fair shake here because he only had a couple of seasons, and it was during the end of the good recruiting days of the Lloyd Carr era.
Right.
And the cupboard was starting to get bare, kind of like what Markdantonio left meltucker. That cupboard got bare real quick once Kenneth Walker got
Meltucker. You could leave Meltucker the ghost of every great player, and he'd still stink it up. I mean, Meltucker is just not a good football coach, but he's a great motivator, just not a good football coach. But here's the issue with Rich Rod. He was Rick Pitino. He was the complete thing of Larry Bird's not coming back into that room. He's trying to make his own. He's trying to make his own tradition. He's trying to make his own. Now, here's the thing about tradition. I completely get it. You want to change in this world. There's so many people that live on tradition. They live back on YouTube. They don't move forward. You understand the part. Don't tell them this. Because people are going to think by themselves, oh, my God, we're winning, and it's efficient, and it looks new, and he didn't say anything, but he still respects us. Don't say to them that you disrespect their tradition. Don't do that, especially when you're not winning.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I remember when Rich Rod came in there, he wanted to try to, create his own identity by doing different things. There's certain programs that are sacred. You don't want to disconnect yourself from the alumni, and it appeared as though he was trying to do that, from what I noticed, though. But again, Rich Rodriguez is still in coaching, and he's fine. And it's just his hiccup was at Michigan. I'm not saying anything derogatory about his coaching.
Well, like Notre Dame, I always say I want them to think new. I don't want them to get rid of the Golden Dome. It's like you got to keep a level of. You want to keep a level of the history, a level. You just don't want to keep so much of it that you never move forward. Michigan tried to kill all of the tradition. That means you're killing your fans. And there are people, like I said, there are people that go to YouTube just to watch 1977 or whatever. Oh, I wish Schembecker was back, him and his Alzheimer's or whatever the hell he had. And it's like, but you can't stop the stupid. You can't stop the people that won't move forward. But you cannot tell them. You cannot tell them you disrespect it. You can just do your thing. They're going to forget all about it when you're winning.
Right.
Yeah, no, again, you make a couple key points, and I'm going to reiterate one more time before we go to the final topic of the broadcast, okay? You don't kill an established school, which is the all-time winningest program in college football history, the tradition. You do that, and you're going to alienate people faster, and then you're going to also turn the alumni and the boosters against you, and that was his biggest issue, and he really got hung badly. That's why they had to move out from under him right away. I think that. But getting back to the topic at hand, I think Michigan and Jim Harbaugh were wise. Get 3 games in your pocket, out of the way, being proactive instead of reactive. And you know what? With all the chaos, Jeremy and Jacob, that the NCAA is in right now, do you think they need this as a distraction going over? I really think that by next year it's going to all get washed anyways. Just let time happen.
This distraction is in the now. It's not in the. It is definitely not in 1 year. I mean, people forget 6 weeks later. They forget a month. They forget 2 weeks later. They forget every. It's like a fish with an 8-second ADD.
No, you're right.
Is.
Yeah, you're right though. It is in the now, but we're still going to have to deal with this a year later when they revisit this. And it becomes a distraction then. That's what I've learned being in a business as long as I have. You take care of the immediate, but at some point you're prolonging the inevitable. You have to deal with this at some point. And right now, the immediate situation, like Jeremy mentioned when he talked about it here topic-wise, and I think it was a dynamo that you came up with here, Jeremy, is being proactive instead of reactive, okay? Getting in front is the key whole thing. And you're going to find that not just Michigan, though. A lot of schools, when they know that there's a lot of problems, that they're trying to self-impose their own penalty to show good faith to the NCAA and everybody. Hey, we understand there's a problem, a mistake made. We recognize it. We take ownership of it, and we're going to do something. And as a result, they did. End of story. All right, Jeremy, your final topic today.
Well, women's sports are really not watched as televised as they should be. And if you actually look, the women's soccer team is way better than the men's talent-wise in their respective sport. Then you got to look at the WNBA, and I'm watching it. And when I watch these teams play each other, not their all-star game, because just like the NBA all-star game, there's no defense played. There's actual defense played in the women's NBA when it's team versus team, and it's a better product to watch. You just don't get the slam dunks. You don't get the high-flying action, but you get better shot selection, better pass making. I actually think it's a better game to watch than the men's right now. And it seems to be better officiated.
Okay.
So once they get those sponsorships up, then they can get the women's pay scale up, and there will be none of this divide in that male and female sports world.
Okay.
So what do you guys think about that? I mean, should people be watching the WNBA and women's soccer?
You see, you know why Angel, was it Angel, from LSU? Is it not Angel Clark? That's Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese. You know why they have this picture like this everywhere on the internet? Promotion.
Great.
Promotion. You don't have as much as Caitlin Clark's as good as she is. But Caitlin Clark is quiet. Caitlin Clark's quiet. She just plays her game. You can't promote the game on Caitlin Clark. It's just the truth. You're not going to get much. As much as we'd love to be able to see that she's going to be the future family woman and she's a sweetheart and all that stuff, and she's just a badass player, that's a Midwestern Iowa thing. It's not going to hit the world. This hits the world, which you see a picture of this over and over, and Angel Reese doing that. That's what they're trying. But what the biggest issue with it is that the men have about a 500-year head start.
Right.
They have about a 500-year head start on everything, on something like that. And then it becomes a head start when you continuously, I could just say the NBA, for instance. You got Bill Russell. I mean, when they were promoting, you had Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Then you go to everything like that. You go Havlicek. You go those players. You get Jerry West, Bird Magic, and then you go to Jordan. You go to everything, Kobe. And then LeBron, keep going. And it's happening again. Now it's happening again because it looks like Cade Cunningham's going to get pretty big, especially where he goes. And the names keep coming. When you have a 500-year head start on something, and then the names do keep coming, they don't have there's not a lot of boring names in the internet world for the men. You get baseball, you got Bryce Harper, you're getting Shohei Ohtani. And it's like, the men have the head start, and then you're getting names that constantly build itself up. So the women are they're doing a good product that's going to show itself up, but they have to have the good product. I mean, you talked about you watch it more. So does Jesse Ventura. I brought him up second time this week. He watches more women's than he does men because he likes the product.
For the same reasons I said.
Yep. He loves the product. But it's like, you got to realize the women's product would get bigger if YouTube and TikTok weren't so big. There is not a hell of a lot of highlight reel things on a woman's game. It's just a lot of technique. The things that you see on a woman's game is when a woman dunks. That's when you see it on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, passing it around, doing the pick and rolls, doing that stuff is not a TikTok, YouTube deal. So what do you see on men's? Oh, my dear God. Every floating shot, you still see Larry Bird doing this reversal left-handed thing from the 85 All-Star game. That made it look so easy.
Reverse layup where he just spun around and boop.
Yep. And you still see that to this day. And it's like I'm on 5 different videos. It just switches this thing. That's on YouTube. And I'll bet you it's on TikTok somewhere. That's 40 years old.
I know it is.
So I'm like, and that was from somebody who had no jumping ability. And that's a highlight. So when there's some women that do have those highlights, you're going to see that thing. But that's where it's coming. It's because the men are still more athletic, so they're going to have more highlights. But the women do have a better product as far as the skill level by far, just because they try. It's like women's fighting is vicious, like in the UFC. Oh my God, they have some crazy fights because they have to.
Okay. Here's what I think. Number one, okay, I'm glad that the women have a place to go after college basketball. Once upon a time, you didn't have that. Item number one. We all know how well women's soccer is done. They know what the World Cup Championship means. The men's obviously haven't even sniffed a final. And they have the MLS, okay, which isn't helping the cause, even though it's designed to be built to help bolster the men's national team. They hadn't done anything. In fact, I had an interesting interview with a guy, one of my colleagues in South Florida named George Richards. Okay, he covers the Florida Panthers. And he was on an edition of Fire Up Florida recently. And what's neat about it is he looked at the MLS as AA soccer. I mean, and it really, when you think about it, you have the English Premier League and all these other international leagues. So when he looked at it, I kind of laughed at it. I said, I can actually, now that I think about it, I kind of believe it. So that's item number one. So we know women's soccer is doing well. But here's my biggest thing that validates Jeremy's point, okay? If the women were being paid enough, do you think, okay, that Brittany Griner would have to go to Russia to subsidize her income in the first place, or any of the other ladies would have to subsidize her income?
We've been talking about that, yeah.
Right, and I'm going to continue to add to that, okay?
Yeah.
And that being that they don't have to go out there and subsidize their income overseas. Now, I'm not talking about Brittany Griner on a large scale. I don't want to go there. But it would be good if the WNBA and the women would be able to pay their players enough money so they're not forced to subsidize their income, and we don't have issues that would be anywhere close to this, or they'd be forced to go overseas if they're not making enough. So everything you said, Jeremy, on this topic is, yeah, sure, the more sponsorship money, the better. It really is. But they're still a ways away from it. We all know that. And I don't know how long it'll take to bridge the gap. And I don't know whether putting the WNBA on Ion television is going to be the answer to it, but I guess it's a step in the right direction.
Well, I see now why they did it. It's Ion's not exactly. You have to fight everything on ESPN to get network. I mean, Ion, you really don't. You're kind of fighting crime shows. I mean, there's not a whole lot to have crime.
Well, I know my significant other is big on those, and I actually watch
your wife or your girlfriend.
Oh.
Oh, yeah,
No,
okay.
I'm not going to put up with the PC stuff. It's like, I'm just saying. It's like she's awesome. We love Candy.
My wife is my wife, and she's also my girlfriend. So the only way that because I'll be darned if she's the other way, you know.
Yeah, if you were, you'd be part of this world.
Sarcastic.
You'd be part of this
current
world if it was the other way.
Right. No, I'm not trying to be sarcastic at all towards the other situation, but I'm talking about my wife, because she's got what I'll do every now and then on that network is I'll watch it to take my mind off sports. When you're so loaded up on sports, you don't mind it as a little bit of a change of pace. I don't know whether Ion television can give them a lot of exposure, whether USA Network or, you know, all these other ones. It's hard to tell, but I'm glad that the women, you know, I remember following the WNBA back in the day when they had the Detroit Shock over at the Palace of Auburn Hills, and they won a couple titles under Bill Lambier. So yeah, I guess the reality is, before we wrap this things up, is I would like to see them get paid a lot more so they don't have to subsidize their income overseas.
But I'll say one thing real fast with it, and
Sure.
this is the deal. This is the deal with something like this, is like they are subsidized by the NBA.
Right.
So if you're going to pay them what they get paid right now, and this sounds controversial to people that still don't like the WNBA, but I really don't care. Here's the thing I'm going to say. Do one thing or the other. Either, if you're going to pay them this way, get somebody else to buy the league and just pay them like this and build up the league. Or pay them $1 million a year and lose more money because the thing is, the NBA can afford the losses.
Right.
They can afford the losses. It's like, this is the thing. What they're never going to build themselves up being attached to the NBA. NBA won't take any more losses for them, and they won't build themselves. It's always going to be no to it. WNBA, if you're going to pay them like this, you might as well have a reason. Meaning that someone else bought them in the league and they're trying to build them separately. And then they can, and then if they build them, they get more sponsorships, they get more everything, then you could pay them. Then you have this. But if you are with the NBA, who can afford the losses? Who can afford the losses? You could, instead of, you could pay them $1 million a year at least, so they don't have to go to Russia. Then you could be able to do that, but they're not going to do it. And they're not going to grow with the NBA around and constant. So you might as well build them separately and come slowly. And then they have a chance to get those salaries later.
Yeah, but here's the thing I'm going to say about what you just mentioned, okay, and that's this. The NBA knows they have venues where they need to go out there and fill some of those dates, and the WNBA is a convenience to them to not only build the brand of basketball, but to also add another 10, 15 dates to go out there and have these ladies play in those arenas. So, I understand it. I lived it for a little while, and I get it. WNBA is an excellent league. I'm glad, the Connecticut Sun is a high area, of interest there, and Seattle Storm. My goodness, they're going to get another NBA team. Not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So you've had other markets, but all in all, I think the WNBA is headed on the right track, and I would like to see it do a lot better. I haven't had time to watch a lot of the games because I'm so busy with building a network and then some.
And you've got good help too, building that network.
Yeah, no, I'm going to tell you something. I'm proud of everybody that I have on this network, and I'll say it to everybody out there. Without a good team, you're in trouble anyways. I mean, I feel we have a lot of strong broadcasts, but I'm not complacent. I'm going to continue to work diligently to make everything we have better and stronger, and I will surround myself with people that are committed to not only our growth but their growth as well. And I'll leave it at
that.
But
that's just all I wanted to be able to say with something like this. It's like with the WNBA, just like I said right now, the NBA makes billions and billions and billions of dollars. Right. And I'm like, and this is just somebody with me. We know it's going to be extra losses if they pay the women more. We know it will be, but they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to keep the same. Why not just separate them from the NBA and build? Because they will be allowed to build slowly, yes, but you will get women to have a chance at a real salary if you separate this. They can be able to work toward getting, because they're piggybacking off the NBA's, all of their sponsorships, all their everything. The Dallas Wings finally have their own sponsorship. It took 25 years. It's like, it is time to, go your way and go slow. Otherwise, with the NBA, start paying and take your losses harder because then these girls don't have to go to Russia.
Yeah, I'll just say one other thing now you brought that up. It's very, very important, though, that the NCAA women's basketball tournament continues to remain popularity. That way you'll have a lot of those players moving to the WNBA and you get them to follow. I know this is probably an analogy that I really like doing, but how did the NBA turn out when Magic Johnson, Larry Bird went there? It really turned it around. If you can see the carryover from college to pro, oh my goodness.
Here's the thing. If WNBA got away from the NBA, they could build a Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese story like Bird and Magic. Because I know they both get along, actually. You could build something like that, but they don't give that same type thing because they're focused on Angel Reese doing this all the time, which you can understand why. you can understand why they do it and stuff like that. But the bird magic story 40 years ago and 40 years now still it resonates, and it still gets it. It's like the best, but everything. But you're trying to play though. You don't need to constantly focus on the whole thing. You can focus on that story if you did that.
Well, Jacob, remember one thing, okay? We're not going to solve the WNBA's problem in one show. We know that. But this is a story that we're definitely going to monitor, right, Jeremy, to make sure that as there are more updates, we're certainly going to bring them to the forefront. I think the one thing about a professor and the pupil that I really like is, we talk about the major sports, but I want to talk about the other sports that don't get as much attention. And when we come up with ideas about the WNBA, this is the type of thing that we're striving for, to be different than a lot of the broadcasts that are out there. So this falls along the lines, and I know we're all going to be paying attention to it. So great show, everybody. I'm really proud of you guys for the effort this morning.
We're happy for you, man. You're doing a great job here.
Thank you. My take on it was, the only thing I hate is that every player in the WNBA, if you combine their salaries, make less than LeBron James.
Okay. Well, again, you know what, Jeremy? This is why we're going to continue talking about it.
Yeah,
pretty much that. All right. With that said, I'll go ahead and
back to you, Scott.
this one more time in case you haven't heard it. Okay, just so you know, Professor Pupil being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room or send your topic idea at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X. You can find us there at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. All right, with that said, Jeremy, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Well, you can find my writings on the southfloridatribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading, underneath some great authors such as Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth himself, and George Eichhorn. You also can find me on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, as you see right now. You can also find me on my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Detroit Lions, and you can find me on Twitter at Smokin' Jeremy B.
Very good. Well done, Jeremy. Turn over to Jacob Christner. And also, not only let everybody know how they can find you, but why don't you give a little bit of a preview of what we can expect on Thursday night's edition of Pundits Pundit?
Well, I'll tell that in just a second. On Sundays here, I also just finished 2 lines in a movie, so I'm going to send that clip to everybody once it's done. You're getting to that part here. It was called Betrayal. I'll send that through. Everybody see it. So I'll be bragging on myself for that moment for 30 seconds. And then, so Monday nights is off the top rope with the sniper and the pundit for wrestling. Tuesdays off. Wednesdays, the Wednesdays is it's South Florida Tribune Sports Exchange and then Confidential and Sideline Sports. Thursdays, Pundits Pundit, where we will talk about, and I will bring these up right now. I'll bring up our topics right now real fast. Let's see here. We're going to be talking about the fun part of it will be the Pensacola Blue Wahoos in Pensacola, Florida, putting the entire stadium on Airbnb. So we'll be talking about little fun things like that. And then Lionel Messi bringing Inter Miami to $200 million in a month as far as evaluation, and their game being streamed in Times Square. So and then we have a couple others, and Luis Rubiales we'll be talking about, and then Spain's Women's World Cup team. We'll be talking about those too. So we're a sports magazine. We go through this, and we have all kinds of different things. And then we have that, and then when I'm off the bench and they need me, I go to Gauntlet on Fridays.
I don't know. I tend to think that Pundits Pundit it may be a sports magazine, but it also touches on different things outside of sports, which is what I think makes it good. Big Dan Davis, thank you very much for the kind words. We appreciate you reaching out to us. Anybody that participates in the chat room, they're going to put their stuff up on there. So Dan, much appreciated. So, all right. Well, I'm glad, that, again, Pundits Pundit. So there you go, Jacob, a little bit of a preview about what our fans can expect on Thursday night. So with that said, great job by my crew. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of Professor and the Pupil. The theme here is motorsports in the Olympics. Boy, I'll tell you, I would love to see that happen. I really would. And I like to think we tried to set it up as well as we possibly could. So on behalf of Jeremy Ballrick, Jake McChrysler. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Professor of People. We will see you next Sunday with some new topics.